Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we go wrapping up Ukraine's Middle Ages and early late medieval. So, by the 13th and 14th centuries, Ukraine was basically a patchwork quilt of kingdoms, principalities, and tribes, all vying for power like a medieval game of Risk, but with more knights and fewer dice. The Kingdom of Galicia Volhynia was the last big shining star, fighting to keep its independence even as Mongol overlords and neighboring states kept poking it. King Daniel Romanovych was like Ukraine's medieval superstar, expanding his kingdom, founding Lviv, and even getting crowned by the Pope himself. Talk about VIP treatment. But after Daniel, the spotlight faded as internal conflicts, invasions, and barons with big ambitions took center stage. Then came Leolan, the king of the mountain, or well, the king of Transcarpathia and beyond. He was an expansionist, claiming more land and trying to shake off Mongol overlords, all while playing politics with Poland, Hungary, and Lithuania. It was basically a 14th century version of you scratch my back, I'll invade your neighbor. But alas, all good things come to an end. After Leo's death, his son Yuri tried to keep the kingdom together, but it was like trying to hold together a pile of falling dominoes. The Mongols still had a grip. Neighboring powers like Poland and Lithuania got involved, and by the late 1300s, Ukraine's heartland was divided and conquered. Yuri's successor, Yuri II Boleslav, tried to keep it all going, but he was torn between old loyalties and new rulers. Catholic, Orthodox, Mongol. Ukraine was like a medieval version of Who's on First, again, with all the allegiances and betrayals. When he was assassinated, the kingdom was pretty much history. By the late 1340s, the independent kingdom of Galicia Volhynia was no more, absorbed into the larger powers of Poland and Lithuania. And just like that, Ukraine's medieval independent streak went into hibernation for centuries. So, from the rise of early Slavic tribes to the fierce battles for regional dominance, Ukraine's Middle Ages is a story of resilience, ambitions, and a lot of castles. It's like the medieval version of a soap opera, full of drama, power plays, and legendary rulers. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Ukraine was basically the prize in a medieval game of who rules the land. The great Lithuanian Grand Duchy was expanding like a giant, muscle-bound blob, taking over Polotsk, Kiev, and Volhynia, all while claiming they were not disturbing the old ways. Because who wants to shake things up, right? Meanwhile, Poland was busy asserting itself over western Ukraine, turning Ruthenian lands into a slice of the Polish pie. Think of it as a giant cultural bake-off. Polish nobles bringing in their language, laws, and maybe some pierogies, while local Ruthenian communities kept holding on to their Orthodox roots with, shall we say, stubborn resilience. But then, in 1385, everything changed with the Union of Krevo. That's when the Polish Queen Jadwiga and Lithuanian Grand Duke Władysław II Jagiełło tied the knot, married, and merged their kingdoms. Suddenly, Lithuania and Poland became BFFs, sharing not just a royal family, but also ambitions to fend off the Teutonic Knights and rising Moscow. Basically, it was like the medieval version of team up to take over the neighborhood. As the 15th century rolled on, internal conflicts started brewing. The Lithuanian nobles, like moody teenagers, kept fighting over who should be boss, especially after Vytautas died in 1430. That led to a power vacuum, which meant more chaos, more civil wars, and of course, more battlegrounds. That chaos culminated in the Battle of Vukomirsk in 1435, one of the biggest fights in Eastern Europe at the time. The rebels, supported by the Teutonic Knights, faced off against Lithuanian forces loyal to Sigismund Kęstutis. And guess what? Sigismund won big, crushing Švytrigailos' hopes for Russia's independence. The Russia's lands? Still under Lithuanian control, with no escape from the big European chess game, of course. Not everyone was thrilled. The growing Polish nobility's grip on Ukrainian lands sparked resistance. Led by Petromuka and his rebels in 1490. They fought back, raiding towns and gaining some street cred, but ultimately the polishers kept tightening their grip. Think of it like trying to unplug the Wi-Fi, frustrating but persistent. Meanwhile, by the 13th century, the Black Sea was getting crowded. Genoa was establishing trading colonies like Kaffa, and the Crimean Khanate was rising like a Black Sea phoenix, controlling key ports and even trading slaves. Yikes. These powers, from Genoa to the Ottoman Empire, were all playing their parts in Ukraine's complex, multi-ethnic medieval soap opera. But the Ottomans, always the aggressive neighbors, weren't about to sit still. They conquered Theodoro in 1475, established the Crimean Khanate, and turned the Black Sea into their own backyard. It was like the Ottoman version of Keep Out, quite literally in their case. Then came the Union, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, formed in 1569, and Ukrainian lands became part of this superstate. Like a really complicated family reunion. But things weren't smooth sailing. Polish nobles Polonized and Catholicized the nobility, while the Orthodox peasants, aka the future Cossacks, kept their faith and their independence, often secretly dreaming of a different life. These fearless Cossacks? They were like Ukraine's original freedom fighters, always pushing back against the powerful nobility, fighting to keep their independence, faith, and way of life. They took pride in being the drunken rowdies of the frontier, and, spoiler, they caused quite a headache for the Polish-Lithuanian authorities. From the Khotin battles to their daring raids, those Cossacks earned their reputation. Brave, rebellious, and always ready to shout, "Up yours!" to anyone trying to take away their autonomy. But as with all good things, the story hits a sad end. In 1775, Catherine the Great stormed onto the scene, and with a big hammer, she officially crushed the Zaporozhian Sich. Say goodbye to the legendary Free Cossacks, as the Russian Empire was all about centralizing power and bringing Ukraine under its iron grip, the last of the mighty Cossacks. They fled, they fought, and eventually most were deported or scattered to distant corners of the empire. The legendary Cossack era was pretty much over, sealed with the fall of the Sich and a new chapter of Russian dominance. So, from fierce rebellions to grand castles, Ukraine's medieval and early modern history is packed with fighters, battles, and bold moves, all shaping the resilient spirit Ukrainians carry today. Think of it like a roller coaster that never quite stopped. Just with more swords and fewer safety belts by the early 20th century, Ukraine was basically caught in the biggest geopolitical chaos since Ray's game of chess. The fall of empires, revolutionary upheavals, and civil wars turned Ukraine into a melting pot of armies, governments, and ideologies. It was chaos, like the wildest reenactment of Game of Thrones, but with real soldiers and less dragons from the Ukrainian War of Independence, with brave fighters like Simon Petlura, to crazy battles over Kyiv, city changing hands more times than your favorite football team changes jerseys, Ukraine was fighting for its future. But as they say, in war, no one truly wins. And Ukraine's hopes for independence got lost in the shuffle of big powers. By 1922, the Bolsheviks seized the day, and Ukraine officially became the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, part of the Soviet Union. That meant 4 decades of Soviet rule where independence was put on hold, and Ukrainian identity was squeezed into the mold of Moscow's mighty machine. In short, Ukraine's modern history is a dramatic saga of upheaval, resilience, and fighting to keep the spirit alive in the face of empires, wars, and oppression. It's like the ultimate underdog story, grown from chaos, but never truly defeated. If you enjoyed this whirlwind tour of Ukraine's modern adventures, smash that like button, subscribe for more, and tell us in the comments. Which chapter of Ukrainian history do you find the most inspiring? Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the wild, wonderful stories of our world.